Hello everybody, and we welcome you to the first ever Flashback edition from N.E.W archives here, looking back on classic matches throughout the ages, throughout the history of N.E.W. We are your host, Max Radix, alongside my broadcast partner, the four-time N.E.W champion. We're not wasting any daylight here, we're going with the first ever Brawl win.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was a fantastic beginning to the saga that is N.E.W, and what a way to kick that show off. Alice Young taking on Diana Simmons.
Yeah, now known probably better towards our audience as True Force, the two-time tag team champions. Well, it wasn't always the case. These two guys did not get along back in the day, and we're going to see their very first ever confrontation on N.E.W Brawl to the founding members of the women's division early.
And of course, a little history of the actual company at the time. This is before Adrian Grover managed to get his hands on it. This is back when he was an actual competitor. An American company had swept up N.E.W and taken it everywhere. I think this was in California, if I remember correctly. Quite high scale compared to what it is now, arguably, but a lot of things have changed since then.
Absolutely. Yeah, much more than international promotion, I would say, back then in the W. Of course, they make great strides to get back to an international base, but they have done European tours,
Well,
and
yeah.
as well. This was before Goldman, so...
Yeah, I mean, he was very solid about keeping the heart of N.E.W in its home, in the UK. However, the world tours could still happen in the future, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, God knows with mad scientists, there's always one thing or another going on. I mean, it's amazing just to see the difference in both these competitors. I mean, Alice Young looks relatively the same, but Diana Simmons looks about 10 years younger. Well, believe it or not, folks, that is Mike Shatopa, our senior official.
Speaking of 10 years younger, in 3 years, Mike Shatopa has managed to age 10.
It's what you get when you're N.E.W senior official. Think how many bumps that man has taken. Oh, it's a chop fest to kick this one off, as you would expect. Both these ladies have not... Oh, big boot there. Both these ladies hadn't faced each other at this point, I believe, in their careers, Owen.
No, again, the N.E.W Women's Champion had not yet been crowned. Of course, we knew Diana Simmons would go on to win that.
Yeah, both these ladies are
Big
multi-time champions. I believe Diana Simmons is a three-time N.E.W champion. And Alice Young, two-time world champion. Diana Simmons also current EFW women's champion. So, we always say these two ladies, the founding blocks of the division. Well,
they certainly are. I mean, in 3 years they've done all of that. I mean, it would only be a week or so after this Diana Simmons would go on to win that championship and thus start all of that.
Some amazing reigns. I mean, obviously you were around back then. I mean, one of the stalwarts of the company. You were actually commentating on this match, which I find quite ironic. I mean, you commentated the first ever Brawl, so maybe the company had some ideas about that.
Yeah,
to
back
begin
then
with.
we didn't do live, so it was all done in post. I was shoved in an uncomfortable studio and made to commentate even over my own matches. Because we've turned that down for the purposes of Flashback.
You're not missing much anyway, folks.
No, you're definitely not from my first foray into commentary. But I mean, this match just highlights how determined these two women already were at this stage of the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're both rookies in this match. I think that's what people need to remember. This is the very, very first Brawl. I mean, these two guys are as green as grass, and you wouldn't believe that by looking at them here. I mean, that was a beautiful backbreaker there by Diana Simmons. We've seen that to this day.
Yeah, I mean, before
Great
this,
bridge by Young.
as far as the company being taken over by the American larger company, at that time we'd only done a few house shows before this Brawl, so everyone was kind of flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, filling in as and when needed. I mean, I was still full-time backstage at this point. I mean, I think I just saw joined the company. I'm really not so sure. I mean, I certainly wasn't broadcasting at this point. Oh, what a is that a fireman's carry?
Yeah, and those backbreakers
As I said earlier, Diana
heavily used throughout this match. I mean, Diana Simmons relying a lot on her strength.
It's good to see these matches actually. You know, as you know, you get a sense of the rivalry. I mean, it is historic. These two guys swapped the title between each other for quite some time.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, this whole thing between these two that ended in them beating respect into one another.
It's interesting to note as well that when eventually once that respect was earned, Alice Young with a pin here, Shatopa's down 2, and a kick out there by Simmons. But it's interesting to note that, you know, they tagged twice. Once as part of the Enforcers, the female brand of the Enforcers, and you know, currently as True Force. They've never won the tag team champions as Enforcers.
No,
they didn't do that until they branched out on their own.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot to say about the Enforcers, which will no doubt get covered in Flashback at some point. I mean, they were quite the thorn in the side here in N.E.W. Of course, these two, once they had beaten the respect into one another, did join the Enforcers, but realised they'd be better off alone.
Oh my word!
Single-handed powerbomb off the top rope.
Well, you know, the other thing I'm getting from this match is Diana Simmons, you know, still very much playing to her strengths here, that power game.
Yes.
Not seen a lot of that technical flair from Alice Young as we get in this match.
And while Alice Young does pull out a couple of submissions in this match, it's nowhere near the calibre of submissions she would later get to be known for. I mean, the dreaded Tennessee chicken wing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alice Young nowadays, I think it's no small statement to say that she is probably the most highly regarded female technical wrestler on the roster.
I think so.
Oh,
big elbow off the top there.
Beautiful elbow. Shade to the Heartbreak Kid. Good old-fashioned kick to the spine. We see that sort of aggression from Young. Just going back to it here. I mean, what were the early days like N.E.W? I mean, you know, you obviously you were going all across the world.
Yeah,
I mean
there was
California.
a lot more travel involved. It got a lot more tiring. It was a lot more draining. I think it started to show on some of the wrestlers. Again, at this point, it was all fresh. Everyone was really excited.
Well, I remember our last world tour, which, you know, we did together as a broadcast team, and we were all over Europe, and it was exhausting because there seemed to be no logic to the plan for the tour. I mean,
Well,
one week we were in Singapore, and the next week we were in Birmingham or something like that.
well, yeah, some things haven't
ridiculous.
changed. I mean, until N.E.W. and E.F.W. have split ways, we've always kind of moved around erratically. Even when we did just stick to the UK. I mean, there was a point when all the shows like Brawl, Mayhem and such got dropped, and we ended up just doing certain places. One show was in Japan, one show was in the UK, one show was in the US, and that was where it reached the peak of exhaustion.
Oh, hard clothesline there by Young. We'll remember these days, I'm sure, as vividly as you do, Erwin, starting to take control here over Simmons, and now tag team partner. I mean, you know, you wouldn't believe the type of rivalry that these two had back in the day, because you speak to these two women now, and they seem to be pretty tight. You know,
yeah,
they travel together, they train together.
Here's something interesting, that Valentine bow. I mean, of course, we knew at some point during this rivalry Fox would come in as the protege of Alice Young, and it seems Fox got taught that lock and has passed that down to Nancy Valentine.
It's very interesting, you know, the
all
Fox.
These kind of little things you notice when you go back 3 years, how it's travelled through our stars.
It's also interesting to note that Alice Young's protege has a protege of her own.
Yes.
So Alice Young clearly doing some decent training there along the way.
Super kick there from Diana Simmons.
Oh, kick out after 2. Shut over there with some clean officiating.
And that super kick has always been a devastating manoeuvre, and Alice Young one of the few to be able to power out against it.
Pump-handle slam, beautiful. You don't see that often.
I was going to say, you don't see Diana Simmons pull that one out as much. Perhaps it got too risky of a manoeuvre.
Only a 2.
Incredible resilience from both these women. I mean, this match goes about 14.5 minutes.
Well, yeah, for a debut matchup, you know, both ladies completely a shot in the dark here. It has to be said, they really don't know what they're going to get in this matchup. And They're just throwing everything at each other.
Yeah,
Simmons
they're
there have a couple of hard shoulder charges.
literally throwing themselves at their opponents.
Tremendous strength there by Simmons, of course, one of the strongest women on the roster. I mean, to this
Most
day,
definitely.
EFW Women's Champion in the ring. And I think she could have that title for a while.
And arguably, now more than ever, has that height advantage over a lot of her opponents. Still only a 2.
We may have to come to the conclusion where we might actually see this match again. Both these women are on the EFW roster nowadays, and you have to believe that Alice Young is not going to be content playing second fiddle to Diana Simmons.
Well, I mean,
if she elects to go for that championship again.
it was quite interesting the fact that Diana Simmons won that championship by putting Alice Young through a table, and they still went on to win the tag titles. It's an interesting relationship even now. Another pin there after a fall-away pump handle slam.
Competitive,
Still
I think, is
negative.
probably the easiest way to describe it. I mean, you know, there is respect there, absolutely, but I think if there's an opportunity for a world title, then it's everyone for themselves, as it should be.
Well, yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, Alice Young would love to get that title back. I mean, well, I suppose in all technicality it's a different title now that they're fighting for. But I think they know what they're capable of in the ring, and I think they wouldn't hold back against one another because they know they could probably get through it as a tag team. I don't think it would affect their relationship as it might with others.
Is it recognised as a world title, the EFW Championship?
It's a good question.
You know, it's something I'm sure Snake would love to solidify, to bring some more legitimacy to the EFW brand. But, you know, we tend to call it the EFW Championship, but
Yeah,
it's the
the-
N.E.W World title.
It's very true. I mean, both women's titles just get referred to as the women's title.
So it's, you know, perhaps a point of contention there between Adrian Goldman and Snake. The N.E.W World title is still considered the big one, I think it's fair to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, N.E.W has been around for 3 years now, solid. Oh, another super kick.
My word, got all of that one right to the nose. If Alice Young should top us there, surely that is it.
No.
2.9.
And
My
EFW,
word.
of course, has only just come out of being a developmental program.
It's very true.
I mean, there's value in both sides of that. Oh, what a neck breaker.
Well, here's another point for you here, Owen. 2, the longest serving NEW female competitors now
On EFW, yeah,
proudly
exactly.
on the EFW,
I mean,
yeah. The founding blocks of the women division.
It
is
holds a
what
lot
Diana
of
Simmons
weight.
and Young have been called on several occasions.
Sure, that's it.
And there's the
there we
3.
are. Hard fought matchup, but Simmons clearly starting to get the advantage as the match rolled on, just using that power advantage over the lesser technical stylings of Alice Young. That will come with time and practice, but what a match, what a way to kick off a
incredible,
historic
yeah, I mean,
rivalry.
That's essentially how everything starts for NEW. That is the showcase we put on to prove what we had to offer the world.
Next match.
What a match it was, of course. The next flashback will be the main event of this same Brawl, when the NEW title was on the line in a huge Hell in a Cell match.
Yes, of course, we will see Vega, the monster, face 5 other men in that Hell in a Cell, such luminaries as GBH and Alex Crom also in that matchup. Looking forward to watching that one back. A little bit of slice of history, of course. Now the ace in the hole for N.E.W is still a massive part of the company.
Yeah.
This is where it all began for the monster.
But until then, I want to thank you for joining us. And this is going to be an interesting series to continue with, very different from just broadcasting live. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
There's that final follow-up slam that finished Alice Young. And again, to be able to put up with 2 of them, I can understand that the third one would finish you off.